All right. What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Mid Hunter Comics, and today we're going to be talking about WandaVision as a whole. It just wrapped up. I'm joined here by my guests. First one up here is my good friend Mark. Welcome, my dude.
How you doing? What's going on, man?
And I'm noticing I don't have names for everybody here, but yeah, just introduce yourself.
Mark, I've known James for how many years now?
Too many.
Too many for the two of us.
And then we also got here a special guest, our good friend, the boy who had 7.
What's up, everybody? James, Mark. I'm so excited to be here, man. I just finished WandaVision like 2 days ago, so it's fresh on the mind.
Nice. And I think, Mark, you finished it this afternoon?
I finished it like 3 hours ago.
Nice.
I watched the last episode. So
let me ask you this. Did you see the end credit scenes?
I watched them both, yes.
Good. All right, we're prepared for you guys. We're going to give a whole rundown on the show. Basically, we're going to be dorking out over this thing. I personally thought it was great. I mean, what'd you guys think? Like, what was your take on the show as a whole?
Matt, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll jump in there, man. I absolutely loved it from beginning to end. I knew the show when it first started. Everybody was complaining about how slow it is, and I imagine we'll get into that, right?
Yeah.
First episode, but I knew they were setting us up. It's the MCU. They've blown my mind, and I've got so much trust in them that I'm like, all right, I'll keep going with it. And after the finale, man, I couldn't stop sobbing for a while. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. I agree. I thought it was fantastic. I had very minute issues, but overall, I thought it was incredible. Again, like you said, with the beginning kind of starting out a little slow, that didn't really bother me. I'm big on, like, especially older movies. They always kind of start slow, so I'm used to that, and I love that. It doesn't bother me because, like you said, I knew it was going to build up to something just incredible, and it did not let me down.
Yeah, you appreciate the slow burn, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and it's funny, Matt, you said something about, like, you trust the MCU now, and that's how it is. Like, I agree. Like, when the MCU started, I feel like a lot of it was, like, unsure of what tone they wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And now that they've done, like, more risky movies, like Endgame and freaking Infinity War, you have the villain win at the end of your movie.
Yeah.
They're now able to take these risks that we probably wouldn't have seen them do back in the beginning of this. And now it's like, you know what? It's weird and it's starting slow, but I trust you guys. I feel like that's how it was. And they handled my trust appropriately, I felt. I feel like they did a pretty good job overall, for sure. I actually watched it with my girlfriend when it came out, like, pretty much immediately, and I appreciated it. But I will say I saw the finale again with my parents, and my mom cried like a baby, just like you, Matt. Yeah, because, like, how can you not? It's so sad. I will say real quick, spoilers ahead. Yeah. I almost wasn't going to bring it up, but obviously it does need to be said. We're going to be talking about the show as a whole. We're going to be talking about the ending. We're going to be talking about everything. So if you haven't seen it, what are you doing here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, stop this video right now and go watch it.
Watch something else. Yeah. But yeah, we're going to get into it here. And the first thing I wanted to ask you guys was this question. I got a series of questions I wanted to ask you. First up, is this the most clever Marvel has been on screen yet?
Wow, I like that question. I was literally thinking about that very thing today, because I was thinking about the way that the community, some people have been let down. A lot of people are like, my spec didn't come true.
Yeah.
I don't like the show, right? And I imagine we'll get into that too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But man, what got them specking? The show was so incredible and so intelligent. It got us thinking, okay, it's got to be this guy. No, it's got to be this guy. Well, but maybe it's this guy. And every episode, all the YouTubers are getting on, speculating, talking about what it's going to be, who's the big bad going to be, what's going to happen, you know? I think part of its magic was that it got us talking, it got us speculating, it got us wanting to figure out what was going to happen. That was magical to me.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it, I feel like it was a weird thing in that speculation in comics started to influence speculation in the show, which is weird because, and I'm skipping a bit ahead here, but I appreciated all the conspiracy theories. I had my own, obviously, and I really appreciated how they set it up to make you have all these questions and stuff like that. Not to mention, some of the Easter eggs at the beginning did come true. The Easter eggs about Agatha Harkness and the Darkhold and the book, all that did come true. So lo and behold, here you go. And some of those things came true. But I wish people would stop worrying about the speculation part. Yes. Were we hoping for Reed Richards to show up? Yes. Were we hoping for Mephisto? Were we hoping for the X-Men and obviously, Magneto? Yes.
Yep.
But I think that I don't think they owe us all this fan service, right? It's nice to have these little tastes and things like that, but I think it's better to tell a cohesive story because I feel like the MCU in the past has been so excited about working up to make a sequel. And this time they told a cohesive story. And I think it's better because of that.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, and I think that one of my favorite things about this is, like you said, they used to especially look so forward to making a sequel and being able to build on what they've made. And I think the nice thing about this show is they left room to do that, but it's really standalone. It can live on its own. It doesn't have to become something else. And I think that's, a really cool thing that they did. They kind of left it open where it could potentially move on, but it could just be, you know what, that's it for now.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite things is the fact that it's standalone. I agree. I like that it's its own pocket of the universe. Now, is it going to tie into future movies? For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to get into that, especially some of those, end credit scenes and that sort of thing. But yeah, I definitely feel that it told a story that was cohesive, and the whole hex was Wanda's, what would you say? It was her denial. It was her pain and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And grief. Matt just said the word grief. I think that's the buzzword of the show. I think the theme was grief very heavily because she lost her parents.
Yeah.
And in this version, the parents are not Magneto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
She lost her parents. She lost her brother.
Yep.
And then she lost Vision. She just couldn't frickin' handle it. So she goes off and just makes a frickin' world for herself to just, to serve her own denial, basically.
Yeah.
It was just really cool. It was really well done. And in the end, it was a great sacrifice ending,
Yeah.
Was able to realize what she was doing and the impact it had on all the people. I thought it was fantastic. What do you guys think about that?
You want to go first this time, Mark?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. And I think one of the interesting things about especially her sacrifice is, and spoilers, if somehow you live under a rock and you haven't seen Endgame yet, and you haven't seen Endgame yet, which if you haven't just, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but spoilers, Tony sacrifices himself and dies.
Right.
And I think this was an interesting sacrifice because she didn't sacrifice herself. She had to sacrifice her she had to sacrifice other people. And it kind of brought in a new layer to that hero making the sacrifice. One of the really interesting things I thought I was thinking about too is the fact that, and not to jump ahead too far, but you find it out, and I mean, you really kind of find it out in the last episode, is she didn't really seem to know that the people in the town were suffering.
Yeah.
She thought I put you in this kind of happy dream space and, you're content, you're fine. And she kind of finds out then that, they're actually in horrible pain. They're feeling everything I'm feeling.
Nightmares. Remember that? Yeah.
When the lady said, at least if you can't stop this, let us die.
Yeah. Yeah. That was powerful.
Yep.
And I think that's one thing that this show has done is it has that more powerful like verbiage to it. Whereas like I felt like the MCU always had, your one-time villain and your like everything, especially when the MCU started off, it was a lot more simpler and like things are getting more complex, themes are getting more complex, tonality is getting more complex. We haven't like everything was so complex in in the show. Did you even notice that every single time the musical score all matched the same 4 notes? Every variation of the WandaVision theme song matched the same notes.
I did not pick up on that.
Wow.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's great, man.
This is the stuff that I feel like the MCU is doing its best right now when it gives the most dorkiest version they possibly can. Like now they have bought themselves the ability to go and take that risk.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the great things about Disney Plus is that we're getting a different kind of medium, right? Because before the MCU was on the big screen. And now all of a sudden they're going to take advantage of a TV show, an episode.
Yeah.
And WandaVision was just that. It literally mimicked so many shows we've seen over the years. And when I'm watching a TV show as a kid and Will Smith is talking about his dad that isn't there, I don't know if you guys have ever watched Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right?
Oh, millions of times.
Right. How many times did some of those episodes like get you in the heart where you're crying because it's real life things that are going on, right? WandaVision kind of took me into this TV show that all of a sudden I'm thinking, wait a second, there's more going on here. Mm-hmm. This idea of grief is deeper than we're even understanding right now. Like we started this whole conversation off of clever. It really was clever because I'm thinking about, Wanda harming people in her grief without realizing that she's harming people. Well, how many of us have lost a job, lost a family member, lost something important to us, lost an opportunity, right? And we're in grief and we end up hurting the people around us. We don't mean to, but we're in so much pain that we start hurting people around us. Like this show is putting out these thoughts in my mind. And I'm like, it's a freaking comic book show. Like, how is it doing this to me, But it's just hit a sweet
and notice how in the end, much like we all must do, she learns how to let it go. And what's that one line from Walking Dead, Mark, that we used to love back when Walking Dead was good? It was like,
who says it?
Essentially, it's like smile because it happened, that sort of thing. Like it's gone, but you make room for the pain. Remember? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
All I can think of is can't go back, Bob.
Can't go back up. No. She let it go, and she made room for the pain.
Yeah.
I think that's incredible. Like, yeah.
You know what? Not to get too heavy here, but it's taken us there anyways. My brother-in-law died of cancer in 2009, and he was married to my oldest sister, and I knew him since I was like 5. And
sorry to hear that, man.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, man. I miss him every day, but this dude, when I was probably like 9 years old, walked into my room with a stack of comic books. I'd never read a comic book before then. And he's like, hey, bro, I have all these comics. Do you want them? And he puts them on my bed. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, a 9-year-old kid seeing all this comics, right? So when he passed away, he'd been in my life for 20 years, right? And I remember just sitting there, and I believe in the next life. So I'm like, I'm going to see him again, right? I truly believe it. But if you guys have lost somebody, it hurts so much because they're not there anymore. And I remember I'm sitting there in my grief and thinking about not having him, and this idea starts to formulate in my mind. And it's like the reason it hurts so bad right now, the reason you're crying and you miss the heck out of him is because it was so good.
Yep.
And so when Vision says, "But what is grief if not love persevering?" I broke down and sobbed, man, because I'm like, that's the exact feeling I had when my brother-in-law died. That's the thought. It's living on. I'm hurting right now because our love is living on. Woo! I got goosebumps all over my arms, man.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you, when Iron Man first came out, 2007, 2008, it was a fun action movie. Now you've got shows and movies that are making you ask questions and draw from your own life experiences. I think this is the medium taking off in a whole new level. And thank you for sharing that, Matt. That was a beautiful story. I definitely appreciate that. And that really just shows how relatable I think WandaVision has been. I know for me personally, than any show I've seen from the MCU. Definitely, I very much agree.
Yeah.
Unruly Simeon said, a great story is ultimately about the universality of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
Amen, man.
Is that an Alan Moore quote, I wonder? That sounds like Alan Moore, the comic writer's mantra. But I remember someone said, no matter what movie, show, video game, whatever, what does it do you feel something? So at the end of Suicide Squad, no, I didn't feel anything.
Just a little tick.
Oh, that's not true. I was going to say, we felt disappointed.
Yeah. But like movies like, and however what you think of like Wonder Woman, I felt that movie made me feel. The ending of The Dark Knight Rises, it made me feel.
Oh yeah.
So a good comic book movie show can make you feel something and not just be a fun Saturday cartoon, I think.
Yeah. And I, you know what? I feel bad for these people who look at comic book movies and this show and think, oh, that's, silly. It's kid stuff, blah, blah. I think gone are the days of Batman 66 where, comic books being adapted. What's that?
Shark repellent.
That's right.
Yes, shark repellent. And Batman running with a bomb.
Yeah.
Gone are the days of that where comic books were adapted into things and they were very campy and, there wasn't a lot of depth there. I think these movies that they're making are just, like you said, they really make you think about, a lot of it is things that are going on in your life, but also things that are going on in the world. And I can't remember the guy who said it, but he was talking. I was watching this thing on Lord of the Rings a few years ago, and they were talking about a lot of the criticisms of Lord of the Rings when the books came out was that it was escapism. It's trying to run away from your problems. And the point that the guy made was, well, no, it's not escapism. It's actually it's talking about something you'd rather not think about, but in just a different way than you're used to. And to look at it and say, oh, well, that's escapism, that's stupid, is its own form of escapism. And I think you're really just missing out if you're not even willing to give these things a try. Because, you got to get through some of these ones that are kind of, silly and weird. But there's so much great material that, I think everybody should watch these.
Yeah.
And listen, Stan Lee, before he died, was someone asked him, like, what do you think about movie and comic writing now versus how it was then? And he said, look, like back then, everything was just like little silly stories and this thrown together. Right now, it's the best writers you have. And so I feel that this was an example of that. This is what Scorsese said like last year or the year before, something to the tune of like, oh, it's just a dumb action movie. Well, no,
he said it's the equivalent of like amusement parks.
I think WandaVision is proving to the Scorseses out there, like, look what we can do.
Yeah, we can.
This new medium.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to bring up from the comments here. I thought this was an interesting topic, and that's going to bring me to our next segment. First few episodes were stunning and clever. Last few were good, but didn't live up to the initial brilliant promise. And while I disagree, I think it's important to address this idea because I do think that some people maybe are a little bit bummed out by a couple things. And we've been praising the show for about 20 minutes now. Let's talk about some of the things that honestly could have been a little bit better. I'm going to start with one that I think is a little bit obvious here. Ralph Boner, otherwise known as one of the MCU's biggest missed opportunities since no one getting harmed in Civil War.
Yeah.
Now you had a Quicksilver enter your show. You could have easily made it this vast epic thing about, the ability to have alternate realities come in. You also said we could have had this could have explained Black Panther being recast. The late Chadwick Boseman could have been recast. They could have made some sort of, WandaVision made it okay to recast now. Nope. His name's Ralph Boner. He has no ties to Quicksilver whatsoever. I gotta say, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I think it was an opportunity too to do what Mysterio claimed happened in Far From Home, which is he was from Earth but not our Earth. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a really exciting idea in Far From Home. Obviously, spoilers again if you haven't seen it, but that wasn't the case. He was just an asshole. But I think it would have been cool to see that actually come to fruition, which is now we have this multiverse, and here is a different version of a character that we've seen in the MCU.
It's funny you just brought up Far From Home, and I loved Far From Home. I think it's one of the best. I think it's like up there with Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire one. I love Far From Home. No joke.
I thought it was great.
But I remember in the beginning when he was describing that he was an alien from another world, I remember that feeling of excitement. And I have to say, I thought we were going to get it here, but I think we're going to have to wait till Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness, which co-stars Wanda, I believe.
Yep. Yeah.
So my take on this is it's not over yet. We got a phase that we're working on here, right?
Phase 4.
Yeah. So my thing is, if they had have come out and thrown so much at us here, we get spoiled, and then whatever happens after this isn't as good. But you said that slow burn, right? I think the MCU is great at that. They're giving us just enough to get us excited and talking on YouTube about Mephisto and Nightmare and Doctor Strange and Magneto and Quicksilver showing up, right? But they're not doing it just yet because they still want us on the edge.
Yeah.
So though I think maybe it could have been a missed opportunity, maybe it isn't. I mean, we heard her kids screaming "Mom" at the end, right?
Yeah,
they're somewhere in the multiverse. So does it mean that Ralph Boner isn't really Quicksilver from a different universe? He just didn't get it now,
You think there's a possibility that Mr. Boner could still be Quicksilver and maybe under some guise entrapped in this universe as this Boner character? Or
either he's a total red herring, right? They hire this kid from the X-Men, from the Fox movies, bring him over, and they do it on purpose to get us all excited and see what it is.
Yes.
And then it falls flat. Or they do it, get us excited about it, and they're like, hold your horses. We've got a whole phase coming, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they hold off on it for a while.
Yep.
Yes, because I find it hard to believe that they would have brought in another Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Just to make a Boner joke.
Right.
it can't go there. It can't.
Right.
It can't. I think that's very possible. Now, you touched on the end credit scene. Yeah, you know what's funny, dude? I saw the end credit scene, and then I turned the show off. And apparently, there were 2 end credit scenes.
Yeah, there was a mid-credit scene and an end credit scene.
You bet when I rewatched it, I went back and I finally saw that second end credit scene. And I was like, okay, this is your little, if you wanted any nods to multiverses coming, I think that's it. You've got Billy and Tom. It is Billy and Tommy, right? Yeah, Billy and Tommy.
Yep.
Speaking to her while she's in that other state. By the way, if anyone caught it, this was a nice homage to that one Doctor Strange scene.
Yes, in Infinity War.
No, in Doctor Strange, he's sleeping, and then there's like an astral projection of him. Like,
yeah. When he's reading,
they did a nice callback to that. And let's talk about all the ties. They even mentioned him by name. They said Sorcerer Supreme.
Yep.
So
she's stronger than him.
We're definitely getting it more than nods. We're getting our confirmations that it's going to go down in Multiverse of Madness. And I'm going to share, let's see. I really like John's comics with kids. I just read his comment right now. I think expecting the mutants to appear here was overreaching. It would have been too much for the show. And I do agree.
Yeah.
The show was about Wanda's grief and not a bigger event. And that goes back to what we were talking about before, which it's nice to have this end credit scene, which is a nod to the multiverse. But WandaVision told the story it was supposed to tell.
Yeah.
A story of grief, a story of pain, and just human relatability, really. Yeah. I do think that if they threw in Reed Richards and threw in Mephisto and blah 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 blah, throw all this in, it
doesn't matter.
It can oversaturate the story you wanted to tell.
Yep.
So John's comic with kids, I'm right there with you, my dude. I very much agree with your assessment here, my friend.
Yeah. You know what, man? My kids always laugh at me because my wife doesn't cry at all, and that's why the Punisher's her favorite character. She's all about being tough, right? I cry all the time, and my daughter comes up to me after the show. She's like, "Dad, you weren't even crying; you were sobbing." I'll tell you what, man, that watching her put her kids to sleep and watching Vision being okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Being okay with knowing I've got to disappear. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It made me love Vision 1,000 times more than I did before. Like some of my favorite characters like Frodo and Harry Potter, knowing they have to go to their destruction to make what's right happen blows my mind, man. And I sobbed in that end scene, and it was about grief. And if we had everybody else show up, it's going to overpower that, and grief isn't going to matter. And this human experience from us and onto the show wouldn't have been there.
Now, I very much agree. And, you can't undercut your story. And, Mark, I know we've talked about this personally. Sometimes in the MCU, there will be a very tense and serious scene, and they'll cut it with a joke, which works for Guardians of the Galaxy really well because Guardians of the Galaxy is a satire on comic tropes as a whole.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful to see the MCU take itself seriously. They did not cut all the heart-wrenching scenes in that finale were not cut with a joke.
Yeah.
It shows them putting the kids to bed. She thanks them for choosing her to be the mom. Already, I'm getting ready. I'm getting sad. And then downstairs, you know what did it for me, Matt? When they're turning the lights off and Vision turns the light back on, he's like, I just wanted to look at you clearly.
Here they go.
I was just like, chills thinking about this right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. I really do. And I'm proud of the team over at the MCU for how far they've come from making me have eye roll moments in the movie theater, like the Civil War fight scene. Tony comes up and we're supposed to be engrossed in this battle between Tony and Captain, and he stops to tell a joke, and it cuts the mood.
Yeah.
And here, we're not cutting the mood. It's here, it's on screen, it's not, the camera's away. You feel it, and you're in it, and that's it. You're left with all your feelings.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And can I bring something? God. Can I bring something up? Just because, like before, we went back to kind of just celebrating the crap out of the show because how amazing it is. I think it is important to still bring up some tough parts about it.
Yes.
For instance, and I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. The director of Sword,
Hayward.
I had a tough time with this character because there he is. I think they kind of went a little over the top with him as a bad guy who is kind of he's kind of like Newman in Seinfeld. He's everything that Wanda is trying to do, he just wants to mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with Hayward, it just felt that he didn't really have any motivation other than to be evil.
Than be a jerk.
Yeah, like it just seemed like other than to be mean and a jerk, that was his only motivation. And I think that was kind of a missed opportunity there.
Yes, I feel like here's my thoughts on Hayward, and I'm going to interrupt you here just because I think that with Hayward, it was they needed your classic MCU villain. Like, remember Yellow Jacket? I bet you.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He felt like a very Phase 1 Marvel villain.
Yeah. That was your classic, where the real villain is denial.
Yes.
Agatha was the real villain of the season. I think
a good character.
Oh yeah.
Well, and we'll talk about Agatha in just a moment, but Hayward and I don't want to say Sword because I think it was definitely more Hayward than Sword because Monica Rambeau was part of Sword and she's just fine. It was a little disappointing to see his plan realized was a little bit just kind of generic at the end. I agree with you, but I feel like he was there to be the opposite of where it's come now, almost maybe like a nod to how the MCU used to have villains.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If we never see him again, I will say that he played his part in being a villain and making things move along. He was more of a vehicle.
Yeah.
Where Agnes is the villain, and like you said, denial is the villain, right? But I don't know. We've seen the last of him.
And
it's going to be something else with Sword and everything that was going on with him and why he was putting Vision back together that we'll find out later.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So let's do a quick tally here. Who are the characters you think we'll see again? I say Agatha.
Absolutely.
Hayward's a maybe. That's half a point.
Yeah.
I definitely think we're seeing this dude again.
Oh,
and I hope he stays white because that's actually kind of a cool look.
Yeah.
I dug the design.
Real quick, this whole idea of Theseus's boat. Oh my gosh!
Wasn't that a great dialogue?
That was great.
I explained that to my kids for like half an hour yesterday, and all my kids' minds were just blown. And we talked about it. It's just so great. So great.
I meant to Google the whole ship thing later, and I forgot to do that. But that's one of the things with rewatching the finale I got to appreciate even more. Yeah. Because Vision is such a intelligent character, and he's very, very mind-centered, character. It's important to have him have all these great bits of dialogue with literally himself.
Yeah.
So it's like when you used to watch Star Trek and you'd see Data talking, I always enjoyed those scenes the most because it's like, this is the most interesting guy. Or remember the movie Prometheus? David from Prometheus. If you guys saw that, I don't know.
I haven't seen Prometheus.
There's a character named David, and he's a robot. And the whole time he's got these interesting views on life. And Vision always reminded me a little bit of him. Mm-hmm. And first of all, Prometheus is very underrated. You're going to want to do that. Secondly,
I've seen half of it, so
yeah. But yeah, I loved that conversation. That whole bit about the ship was it was a great bit of dialogue. I actually thought that this entire last episode was loaded with great dialogue.
Oh yeah. Here's the thing about White Vision, though, really quick, because you brought him up. If we're going to see him again, in that moment, he realizes, who he is. He gets all of his memories back, and he just flies out through the window, and he's gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to find out where he went and what's going on internally with him in that moment when he got all those memories back, loving Wanda, being with Wanda, having Thanos kill him, being brought back. You know what I mean? Like everything, like he got it all back right then, and he took off and went somewhere. I need to know where he went and what happened with that. So we're definitely going to see him again.
We're definitely going to see him again. And it's funny how the purple Vision, that he was a memory made real. He said he was a body without, he was a human, he was a
mind without a body.
Mind without a body.
Yeah.
All that. He's been so many things, and he's had so many different times where he's asked, and he literally asks Wanda, "Who am I?" By the way, that's always been a theme with Vision, is like, what am I? Who am I?
Yeah.
What could I be? Because I was created. And now this new Vision, which is our old Vision brought back into this form, he has to go discover who he's going to be.
Yep.
He is the real Vision that just got all his memories downloaded right back to him. He's got to figure out for himself what to do with that. And I would love to see like a bonus episode, but I'm sure we'll get some movie where we'll find out really like what happened after those events. I definitely want to know.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
And there's another real life question, right? We had grief in this story. Human beings have to figure out who we're going to be, right? It's just, I don't know, man. It's just taking me down this awesome trip that I just feel like I'm going to be asking all these questions in this phase,
I know.
And by the way, if they do a movie or a miniseries or some type of thing with this new Vision and what he's doing, if they don't call it Vision Quest, I'm going to lose my mind. I mean, come on.
I like it.
It's so obvious. How do you not call it that?
Yeah, I agree. Oh man, I think there's going to be some really cool upcoming stuff, and I'm excited for the darker themes. I want them to continue this more risky approach for sure. Yeah.
When they made the Guardians of the Galaxy household names, they hit something, man. Nobody knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were except for real hardcore comic guys, right? And gals. Mm-hmm. Now everybody knows who Groot is, who Rocket Raccoon is, who Star-Lord is, right? They are, like I said in the beginning, they've earned my trust, and I'm excited to go down the rabbit hole with them,
Yep.
100%.
Guardians of the Galaxy, because I would say it's right around when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, which is where I started taking the MCU more seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ironically, a movie that didn't take itself.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. So what are you looking for in terms of the character Wanda in Doctor Strange 2? What are you hoping to see out of her next development?
So we were told by Agatha that the Scarlet Witch is supposed to be stronger than the Sorcerer Supreme. That's obviously telling us something that's going to happen in Doctor Strange 2, right? She's reading out of the Darkhold, which is a wicked and evil book, all right? And she's studying it, we see at the end. Mm-hmm. So I have this idea formulating where Doctor Strange is going to come in and say something like, hey, you're an Avenger. You're good. You're powerful. But you can't be reading out of that book. Nothing good can come of that, right? Where that's going to go, I don't know, but that's kind of where I see it happening. I can see them battling maybe over, no, my sons are out there, and this is helping me find them, right? And my brother, I met him. I saw him. He's out there. I need this. And Doctor Strange is like, yeah, you don't. I don't know. I mean, I don't think she's going to be the big bad, but I think it's going to make it feel that way in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
I see if she's going to be the villain. What would be cool is, sometimes whenever you have a good villain, in my eyes, it's ambiguous. Mm-hmm. Like from one perspective, they look like the villain, but they're not necessarily the villain in certain eyes. If you get her into that sort of position, create those nice ethical questions. I think that could be really interesting if they go down that route. And I see that he does continue to say, Stefan said, I'm curious if she's going to be the villain, like it is rumored. So apparently there are rumors out of this right now. And you know what? We're just going to have to wait and see. And I say that because the rumors I heard about WandaVision were way off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even when you start watching the show, every episode, at the end of the episode, you think, okay, I think I know what's going on here. You start the next episode and you realize you were so horribly wrong that you just feel incredibly stupid.
Yep.
So, I think it's fun to kind of look ahead and wonder what we're going to see. But at the same time, I don't think any of us can predict what's going to happen. But whatever it is, the one thing I can predict is it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And James is right. Killmonger was a perfect example of somebody where you're like, okay, I see where you're coming from. I might not agree with how you're carrying out, your feelings and what you think, but I do see where you're coming from. Thanos. Okay, man, I guess you're trying to save, the universe by killing half of the universe, right? So as long as we get Wanda in this state where we get what she's doing because of this grief that came from WandaVision, but now she's kind of figured it out. And so she's trying to do something a little different. I'm all for that, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now that she's gone through this, she's been reading the Darkhold and she's aware of what she's doing. She knows who she is.
Yeah.
So she's a fully self-aware and extremely powerful. I think today is like International Women's Day.
Let's go.
Hands on Wanda.
What a day to do this.
I think the MCU has brought Wanda fully into fruition. I was saying to you, Mark, a couple months ago that I like what they did with Thor over the years.
Mm-hmm.
He became extremely powerful. I like with Wanda that her powers are ever growing, man. And in our show, she didn't even know the full extent of her powers. This Darkhold is going to help her kind of get that more fully realized. I'm excited. I think she's more powerful than Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah. She was going to kill Thanos in Endgame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they even made a joke about that in the show, by the way. Remember that? Yeah. Monica Rambeau says she would have killed Thanos if he didn't initiate the Blitz.
Yep.
So, it's totally true. Everybody thinks like, oh, we had Thanos. Where do we go from here? That was the most powerful character forever. Oh, honey.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Have you not read comic books?
We got Galactus. We got to get Silver Surfer. Let's get some
Dr. Doom
going.
Yeah.
Let's go. You could go all the way up to doing the Beyonder. Who knows, man?
And how many times in the comic books did Thanos himself come back with something new, something different, right? There's so much we could do.
Yeah.
We could do. Look at me talking like I'm a part of it.
Yeah. So speaking of like characters getting realized, we haven't brought it up yet. So let's talk about a little bit of Rambeau here. Yeah. I was pleased with her depiction here. I was reading an interesting article the other day about how this actress, when she was given the script, was kind of like just the rest of us. She was like, I didn't really get it at first. And then, she eventually like figured it out whilst playing the role. I think that's kind of like a little funny story there. But I think Rambeau's pretty interesting. I do think that right as it stands right now, I think she's a touch on the generic side. So I want to see a little bit more happen there.
I think, though, I agree with you, but I think part of that is it was kind of a smart move, which is she really didn't have like a ton to do in this show, but she's an intriguing character, and I think it's smart that they didn't give her too much to do, because then it feels like it's kind of taking away from the main plot, which is Wanda's story. But I think what they did was they made her interesting enough that I'm excited to see what they're going to do next with her. And I think there's a lot of material that they can go into. And I think it was smart though not to overuse her in this show.
Mhm.
I think it was good just to kind of build that intrigue, and then now we can move forward with her character.
And it's a lot of mystery still is around her character. Like, is she Photon? Is she Captain Marvel? What are we dealing with her? We've seen her eyes light up in 3 different colors:
Yep.
purple, blue, and yellow. Each time her eyes lit up, she was doing something a little bit different.
Yep.
Who is she? You know, what are we going to be seeing from her? I don't know, but I think I do appreciate that the cat's not completely out of the bag here. They're keeping some cards playing close to their chest with this one.
I've said it a few times already. I think everybody around Vision, Wanda, and their kids was just to add to that story.
Yep.
But we got enough bits and pieces, like her mom's nickname, right? And great acting, though. I remember looking at my wife after, the second episode with her, and I'm like, she's going to be great in the MCU. I think she's a great actress. And wherever they take the story with her, it's obviously going to go up into space with Nick Fury and the Skrulls. And I mean, so we'll see more of her later for sure, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Matt, you talked about acting. I think Elizabeth Olsen's going to be winning awards from this.
She's epic, man.
She was great.
I feel like for a show that was shrouded in grief and all that, I think she displayed that perfectly.
Yeah.
She cried when she was supposed to cry. She loved when she was supposed to love. I loved her. She was always a side character in all these movies.
Yeah.
She really got to shine here, and she handled it well. I'm happy. I'm very pleased.
She was motherly, even. Like,
say that again?
She was even motherly, like.
Yeah.
Your mom, man. Like, you could feel it.
Yeah, I agree.
And she was so good at making that switch between sides. The biggest, I think the one that stands out to me most is when she kicks Monica out of the hex, and Vision comes in, and he says, where did what was her name? What was her fake name?
Geraldine.
Geraldine. He says, where did Geraldine go? And when she says, oh, she left, she had to go home. Like, it was just so chilling.
Yeah.
It was that switch from angry Wanda to like, oh, I'm the sitcom wife was chilling and amazing.
Yeah, it was.
Plus, that was in the heat of her still trying to hide everything from Vision.
Yeah.
She was trying to protect him out of love. I mean, how relatable is that?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about relatability? That's definitely something I think I've certainly done. I think that aspect of it was handled very well. And she even says to Vision at one point, and he starts to get wise, you're Billy and Tommy's father. That really should be enough.
Yeah.
She doesn't want him to know the truth. She doesn't want him. She's concerned that if he finds out that he's just a memory made real, he's not going to know who he is. A lot of the show is who am I? Brings you back.
Yeah.
Very well done.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of acting, Mark, what was that one bit of bad acting you caught from Agatha? You want to talk about that real quick?
So actually, as we just talked about how great Elizabeth Olsen was, she actually did it too in the last episode, which is I found they had a little bit of a difficult time portraying like being in pain if they were being attacked. The first time I noticed it was in it was episode 8 when it started with the flashback with Agatha, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was 8, and when they're attacking her, she's like screaming. Yeah. But if you listen, there's a lot of sound effects on it. It's just like, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like you're hurt. I don't know what that sounds like. And obviously, I mean, it's a very minute thing. I mean, it takes up all of 8 seconds in the entire show. But I thought it was hilarious and kind of cringy.
I caught that too, man. I caught that too.
Yeah, it was a little rough, but I mean, when you have a show with such. I mean, everybody in the show had great acting chops.
Yeah.
You
But
know.
if your only problems with the show is Agatha whined weirdly at one point and they
Yeah.
show us Mephisto, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, she was great in the entirety of her role. Like, other than that, I thought she was so good in this show.
Yeah, I agree.
She was my favorite actress in the show, man. She really was.
She was funny. She was very funny. And I've seen her play like comedy parts. Wasn't she in Parks and Recreation? Or am I tripping? Wasn't she like
I'm not sure.
briefly Leslie's like manager or something for a second?
Oh no, she was Paul Rudd's campaign manager.
Yeah.
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 She was in that, and she was in Step Brothers. She was what's his name's wife.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. But listen, she can handle comedy very well.
She's
put that right there. Thanks for the kind words there, my friend. Yeah, she can handle comedy really well. So it was nice to see her give a little breath to this ancient witch character straight out of the comics. That was a good job.
Yeah.
Good on her, man. Good for her. Now, guys, we got about just a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, and also I'll give mine and why I think. I want you to rate the show. Okay? So I am going on the higher end of the spectrum, and I am going to give it a 9 out of 10. I like the themes and relatability of the show. I liked that it didn't undercut its realism with a joke. I greatly appreciated the pacing, which I know a lot of people hate the pacing of WandaVision. That's like one of their biggest complaints. I disagree. I think it mirrors that of the MCU very well. And overall, I think it accomplished what it wanted to tell, which is a story of overcoming grief, learning to let go, and then from Vision's side of things, dealing with your existence and existential crisis. So 9 out of 10, I recognize that's pretty high. Yeah. Mark, you want to give your score?
I feel like it's kind of a cop-out, but I mean, I agree with you, honestly. I think 9 out of 10. Just because like I said, there were little problems I had with it, but it just, everything that I loved about it completely blew all of that out of the water. I just think it was such a smart show. Again, we talked about it the whole time. The acting in it was amazing. Everybody brought their A game, and it made me really hopeful. Not that I wasn't already, but it really made me hopeful for what's to come in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. I don't think it's a cop out. I think you hit it right on the head. I'm going 9 out of 10 as well. Because it's that good. I fell in love with characters that I didn't love so much. Vision, I've always thought that's just Vision.
Yeah.
And after watching this show, like, dang, Vision rocks. I need to go read way more about Vision, But just those moments in the show, my whole life, I've loved comics and superhero stuff because it touches me here, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as it hits me here, it pulls me in. And the quote, "But what is grief if not love persevering," is the greatest quote that has come out of the MCU. I sobbed so hard after hearing that. And I'm just thinking, we're living in a world right now where people have lost loved ones since COVID hit, right? People are having grief. This is a comic book show we're watching, and yet it's talking about love and how it perseveres through pain and grief, right? To me, it's beyond the excitement of Endgame, which is my favorite movie of all time because Infinity Gauntlet is what I grew up reading, what my brother-in-law handed me. It was my dreams on the big screen. So that's a 10 out of 10 for me. But this was just real life. I felt it. The storytelling was great. I fell in love with the characters more, and I can't wait to see what comes out of this. It's got me so excited. that I can't give it anything less.
I agree. Well put, guys. Well, I think that wraps up what we were going to talk about with the show. I don't know about you guys, but I was pretty pleasantly surprised. More pleasant surprises like this, please. We got Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming up.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, that's going to be hard to. WandaVision kind of set the bar a little bit high.
Yeah. Maybe they should have had this come out like third.
I don't want it to become just an action show. I'm worried it might just be an action movie. But we'll just have to see. Either way, I like this steady stream of MCU. Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we get Loki right after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, Mark and Matt, thank you for joining me. Everyone in the chat and live and whoever's going to watch this after this airs, let me know down in the comments what you thought. Did you like the show? Were you bummed out because your conspiracy theories didn't come through? Or were you happy that they stuck the landing? Because they did stick the landing. They told the story they wanted to tell. Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to check out the boy who had Seven's channel. He does really cool reviews, CGC unboxings, really impressive CGC unboxings, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes. And just overall, just a great guy. And Matt, you've been a great guest. Mark doesn't have a YouTube channel, but maybe that'll
not
one day.
Maybe. I don't know. I got the bug now.
Make it happen, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to do it now.
All right, guys. I'm signing off. Matt, you got any catchphrases?
No, man, but thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay, guys.
Mr. Managed.
Yeah, there we go. Good night, guys.
All right. Thanks for having me on, man.